Something being overpowered isn't a new concept. As long as video games have existed, overpowered mechanics and items have existed as well. From the energy swords in Halo to the blue spiny shell in Mario, overpowered items exist everywhere, and Pokemon is no different. Over the generations, countless overpowered items, Pokemon, and mechanics have been introduced into the game, some admittedly more overpowered than others. In part, this is due to power creep. Power creep is extremely prevalent in the Pokemon games, and in simple terms, power creep is when newer mechanics, or in this case Pokemon, are stronger than previous Pokemon already in the game. This is to keep the latest Pokemon relevant, which indirectly fades older Pokemon into irrelevancy. Generation 8 was the worst case of power creep ever seen in the history of Pokemon, with Pokemon like Dracovish, Dragapult and Galarian Darmanitan being introduced. While the main focus of power creep is on Pokemon like I just mentioned, there is a select group of Pokemon that haven't had a chance to display their abilities due to them being completely unavailable for use. If you haven't guessed already, I'm talking about the Pokemon released in Pokemon Legends Arceus. Due to the lack of online battling in Legends Arceus, mainly due to the unique battling style, these Pokemon are lacking in many crucial things that define whether Pokemon is good for competitive use. For one, no Pokemon in Legends Arceus has abilities. Abilities is one of the most important features of a Pokemon. It's what makes a Pokemon like Landis so amazing and versatile. The other thing Legends Arceus lacks is the use of held items. While this may sound a lot less significant, many Pokemon have amazing synergy with certain items, and can transcend them to a higher level of power. Magikarp Clefable holding a Life Orb, or Galarian Darmanitan holding either a Choice Scarf or Choice Band are some great examples. With Pokemon Scarlet and Violet just a few months away, we're going to see the introduction of all the Pokemon currently trapped in Legends Arceus into the main series game, therefore allowing them to have access to both of these attributes. This may not seem like a big deal, but I believe some of these Pokemon may completely break the metagame. First of all, we have Hisuian Lilligant. By itself, Hisuian Lilligant boasts some respectable stats, having both over 100 base attack and speed. Paired with its relatively decent offensive typing, it could already be considered viable option for battling. Unlike the other Pokemon on this list, Lilligant doesn't benefit majorly from introduction of items or abilities into the game, with all its abilities being mediocre at best. What makes this Pokemon so overpowered is its signature move Victory Dance. Victory Dance raises these 4 stats by 1 stage, and on top of that gives all moves used by the user a 50% increase for the next 4 turns. This effectively gives Lilligant a 2x multiplier for attacks, while also giving it a nice defense boost. This isn't a one-time use move either. This move can be used again and again and again. If this move finds its way into the main series game, it will be the single best setup move in the game since the introduction of Geomancy. However, there is a fair doubt whether this move will actually find its way into the main series game for obvious reasons, and without it, Hisuian Lilligant is nothing more than an average Pokemon. Next up, we have Hisuian Goodra. Now this Pokemon, unlike Hisuian Lilligant, doesn't rely on a niche move to increase its viability. Instead, Hisuian Goodra takes the already strong stats and move pool of Goodra and improves in every way possible. Steel Dragon is one of the best defensive typings in the game. Hisuian Goodra will be without doubt one of the best Pokemon for defensive capabilities. If this Pokemon had access to a recovery move that wasn't Rest, I don't think it would be crazy in saying this would probably be one of the best Pokemon in Generation 9. Even without consistent recovery, Hisuian Goodra will benefit massively from items such as Leftovers for a defensive set, which would utilize its defensive stats, or more offensive sets such as Choice Specs or Life Orb, which would instead take advantage from its Stab, Draco Meteor and Steel Beam, 2 of the best moves in the game. On top of this, Hisuian Goodra sees a slight improvement of its abilities over its original counterpart, replacing Hydration for the slightly better Overcoat. This allows for Hisuian Goodra to completely counter all powder moves such as Spore, which is one of the most popular moves in competitive battling. While Goodra by itself is a respectably well-rounded Pokemon, Hisuian Goodra simply takes this already good Pokemon and makes it much better. Another Pokemon with great potential in my opinion is Sneasler. While Sneasler doesn't have any incredible abilities, its impressive stats makes it very similar to Weavile in many ways. Weavile is already an incredible Pokemon, and while Sneasler has a slightly worse offensive typing than its Sinnoh cousin Weavile, the combination of Stab, Close Combat and Poison Jab with its incredible speed stat will allow it to become a very competent and potent wall breaker. A Pokemon that unsurprisingly has massive amounts of potential is Enamorus. All of Enamorus' brothers are absolutely incredible in battling, with Landorus being infamous for how good it is, and Thunderous being one of the best Pokemon in the VGC battling format. Enamorus boasts, much like its siblings, very impressive stats. Its move pool is a little lackluster, but with the Fairy typing, it's able to fire a Stab Moonblast with its 135 base special attack. Despite also being a flying type, Enamorus doesn't earn a single flying type move. I don't mean it doesn't earn any good flying type moves, it literally doesn't learn any flying type moves at all. While Landorus suffers a similar fate, with its only flying type move being Bounce, it at least has great coverage as well as one of the best abilities to make up for it. While Enamorus' stats are the obvious thing to look at when researching this Pokemon, something else caught my eye, its hidden ability Contrary. Currently, Enamorus has no moves to benefit from Contrary. If in the future this Pokemon maybe gets moves such as Overheat, or even better, Flare Cannon, this thing will be one of the best special attackers ever. So, you may have noticed that the video hasn't ended yet. I've already talked about a literal legendary Pokemon, so what could be more overpowered than that? Well, before I move on to what I believe is the most overpowered Pokemon Legends Arceus, an honorable mention has to go to Hisuian Zoroark. While Hisuian Zoroark on its own has pretty good stats, its ability Illusion makes it absolutely overpowered. Its typing Normal Ghosts gives it an immunity to these three typings, and these typings are some of those common offensive types in the game. This basically means if a person on the enemy team has a Hisuian Zoroark, Normal, Fighting and Ghost attacks need to be clicked with extreme caution, regardless of who you are attacking, in case you are secretly facing a Hisuian Zoroark. I wouldn't be surprised if this Pokemon alone may make certain fighting, normal or ghost attackers less popular and relevant, just from the existence of a Hisuian Zoroark. Couple this with the fact it just looks completely awesome, and this is a Pokemon that is without a doubt overpowered. Despite all that, there's a Pokemon even more powerful than that. But before I name them, I ask that you check if you're subscribed. I won't waste much of your time, but 99.6% of people aren't subscribed to my channel, which is a lot of people. This channel is very new, so chances are you aren't subscribed. And if you just double check you're subscribed, it would mean the world to me. And now, let me introduce you to Ursaluna. Immediately, Ursaluna's stats show how much potential it holds. From an impressive HP stat to a whopping 140 base attack, which, by the way, puts it in joint 39th out of every single Pokemon, with most of the Pokemon above it being legendary or mega Pokemon. The reason why I believe this Pokemon is going to be absolutely overpowered when released is because of its ability Guts. Guts gives the user a 50% attack bonus when it has a status condition, basically giving it a stat increase for free. With the introduction of items, Ursaluna can hold a Flame Orb, which will automatically inflict it with a status burn. Usually, the burn status halves the victim's attack. However, Guts not only negates this debuff, it also gives it the 50% attack increase. This on its own is very good, but it isn't enough to make it overpowered just yet. A Pokemon very similar to Ursaluna is Conkeldurr. It has the exact same base attack as well as the same ability Guts. Conkeldurr is a really good Pokemon, but I don't think anyone would consider it to be overpowered. However, a certain move exists that despite not being stabbed, Conkeldurr will almost always have on its moveset. This move is Facade. Facade is a 70 base power normal type move. When the user has a status condition, the base power is doubled. Now, if we take a look here at Ursaluna's typing, we can see it's normal ground, arguably one of the best offensive typings in the game. This means it has access to Stab, Guts, Facade, coming from a whopping 140 attack. Alongside this, also has access to Stab Earthquake, famously one of the best moves in Pokemon history. There's one other piece of evidence that I believe proves Ursaluna is absolutely overpowered without any doubt, and that is, it was actually used in a tournament. That's right, despite it not being officially out, Wolfie Glick, a former Pokemon champion, held a tournament in a custom rule set on Pokemon Showdown where any Pokemon in Legends Arceus could be used. In this tournament, we saw not only Pokemon challenges, extremely experienced Pokemon player and one of the best Nuzlockers in the whole world, but also Pokeaim, a veteran battler that was the fan favourite for sure. The other contestants were made up of various YouTubers, many of them had a background in Pokemon battling. Despite these two juggernauts being in the tournament, neither of them won. In fact, none of the Pokemon YouTubers won. Instead, a YouTuber by the name of RT Game won, who isn't even a Pokemon YouTuber at all. And how did he win, you may ask? With Ursaluna. RT Game was the only person in the whole tournament to use Ursaluna, and the result was that Ursaluna pretty much one-shot any Pokemon it attacked. I think that's enough evidence to conclude that Ursaluna is overpowered, and therefore is going to be overpowered in the newest Pokemon games. If there's a Pokemon that you think is better than Ursaluna, or any of the other Pokemon on this list, please write it in the comments below. I'll be sure to read it, and I'd like to see what you think.